It's a real pleasure to be here with you this morning. And one of the honours of my role is the opportunity to work with and champion Britain's greatest industries. And you surely represent one of them. Europe's leading venture capital market, the world's second largest private equity and venture capital hub, our continent's largest private debt market by a very long way, and the world's second biggest asset management industry. In recent years, as you said in the introduction, our tech companies have raised more investment than France and Germany combined. And since 2017, we have halved the venture funding finance gap to the US as a proportion of our GDP. Many American blue chips houses now have offices in the United Kingdom, and I was pleased to see the vote of confidence from OpenAI in placing its first international office here in London, drawn here by our talent pool, our universities, our time zone, language, and of course, our global financial hub. And that's not, by the way, according to me, that's according to ChatGPT, when asked for its assessment of London's advantages. And I promise you, that was the only bit of my speech written by artificial intelligence. All the rest of the failings are mine and my team's. But private equity and venture capital is the success story that has spawned 1,000 further success stories. All those businesses delivering growth for our economy, creating jobs for our people, and driving innovation for the future. And when I say businesses, I mean in the main small businesses. 9 in 10 of the companies you've supported have been SMEs. And the majority of them, contrary to much reporting, has actually been outside of London and outside of the southeast. So you are the businesses helping to start up, to scale up, and the UK to level up, and doing so with enviable efficiency. Since 2013, investors owning assets in this sector have experienced a near doubling of their original investment. Now, no one can argue with returns like that, and no one can say that it has been easy. I was hugely proud as Digital Secretary when I celebrated the United Kingdom becoming a $1 trillion tech sector. That was in 2020, a year that was challenging for so many, when UK tech companies attracted a record $15 billion in VC funding, creating 7 new billion-dollar companies and turning this United Kingdom into the unicorn kingdom. Because today, 2023, we have faced significant global economic headwinds. The UK market has held up well and is standing strong. And our tech sector retains the number 1 spot in Europe, and long may they continue to do so. Because the impact you have on our country goes far beyond growth. Your backing for UK companies helps to build the infrastructure we need to pay the pensions our retirees rely on, to deliver the returns our savers have worked hard for, to generate the tax revenues to power our public services, and of course, to stimulate the innovation needed to meet our most important goals. Goals like net zero. Private equity and venture capital will be crucial in helping businesses and government to achieve net zero by 2050. And the UK has a strong investment record. We've already had the fastest reduction in emissions in the G7. But I believe there is potential for private equity to play an even bigger role, both by holding its portfolio of businesses to account, and by investing in the most innovative solutions. Net zero goods and services will require unprecedented levels of investment, an extra 50 to 60 billion pounds each year. We want to leverage the private investment needed for those low carbon technologies. And indeed, the British Business Bank has the explicit objective to help get the UK to net zero. Despite these successes, UK businesses face significant challenges to access the funding they need to grow. Every time they are forced to look overseas for capital growth that they would prefer to find domestically, every time talent and intellectual property are lost and growth is stifled, that is a failure, and it is our failure. Our ambition as a government is to ensure that finance flows to our cutting-edge companies so that they can start up here, they can scale here, and importantly, they can stay here. So we have a bold goal to become the global capital for capital, offering innovative funding solutions, encouraging a more productive use of capital, for example, for innovation, net zero, and infrastructure, unlocking more capital from domestic and institutional investors, as well as improving our offer to international investors, and importantly, ensuring the benefits are shared right across our United Kingdom. So we're doing this in 3 ways. First, through the significant reforms set out by the Chancellor at Mansion House, helping companies to grow and list here, boosting returns and improving outcomes for pension fund holders, increasing liquidity for high-growth companies, and seizing the opportunities of the future by reforming and simplifying our regulatory rulebook. Second, we are improving the UK's capital markets in other ways. On listings reform, with the publication of the prospectus legislation, on investment research, with Rachel Kent's review, and on connecting private and public markets with the so-called bridge announced by the Chancellor to be up and running by the end of 2024. And we're encouraging investment in higher risk, early stage companies which face the greatest challenges in accessing capital, with a range of tax reliefs for investment into small and growing companies. And thirdly, we are reducing regional imbalances for smaller businesses accessing finance. That is another explicit objective of the British Business Bank and has led to initiatives like the Regional Angels Programme and the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. And analysis actually shows that the Northern Powerhouse Fund has already increased productivity, employment and skills from the north. Nearly 3/4 of businesses surveyed said that they had increased workforce skills. Over 60% reported additional investment in R&D, and 6,000 new high-quality jobs have been created through the fund. We're now seeing that next generation of these regional funds, expanding them into the northeast and the southwest, as well as Scotland and Wales, bringing huge opportunities to every corner of our country. And for me, that is proper structural levelling up in action. And it is fundamentally conservative, spreading the opportunity to create wealth to as many people in as many parts of the country as possible, promoting investment, boosting business, creating jobs, growing our economy. Our values aligned with yours. And I hope that you have seen that we have in the Prime Minister and in the government big ambitions to get to net zero by 2050 to bolster our resilience and economic security, to deliver prosperity for all parts of our country. But to achieve those things, we need to realize another big ambition: to become the world's most innovative global financial center, one that is open, sustainable, technologically advanced, and globally competitive, which acts in the interests of communities and citizens across all 4 nations of our United Kingdom. And I want to thank you today for how we're working together, for everything that we're doing to make that clear vision a reality. And I look forward to continuing to work together with you in the months and years to come. And I very much hope that you enjoy this conference today. Thank you very much.
Deputy Prime Minister, may I extend my welcome to that you've already received from everybody here, and appreciate the fact that in what is, by any standards, just a remarkably frenetic week, you have added this into your schedule, and thank you for that. And the messages that you shared there, I think, resonate very strongly, whether it's the fact that private capital is needed all over the UK, the fact that it helps to support small businesses, and the particular areas of the economy that you're looking to do it. Your personal commitment to the industry was illustrated a few months ago when you hosted a roundtable in Downing Street with some of the firms in our membership. You have here today the whole industry. You've got the fund managers, you've got the institutional investors. We're delighted to have our friends from ILPA with us today. We've got big parts of the ecosystem like Aon. When you reflect on the stage the economy is at now, what's going to happen in the year ahead, how important is this industry going to be to help deliver the growth that you want to see?
This industry is totally essential. And for me, the great strength of the United Kingdom is that we have an open economy, we have a rules-based economy, and that in turn attracts investment. It attracts investment in the United Kingdom, it attracts investment from Europe, and it attracts investment from the rest of the world. And in order to realize the sort of objectives that I was talking about in my speech, for the country, whether that's specific projects or whether that's driving growth and opportunities in all parts of our country, creating those jobs, creating those new opportunities in different parts of the UK, we need to work with you as a government. We need to work with you as private equity to get that investment into the United Kingdom. And it's interesting. In the UK and traveling around the world, I was in Singapore a few months ago. I was in New York for the UN General Assembly in Washington a couple of weeks ago. And it'd be interesting to hear your reflections. But what I hear is a sense, actually, that if anything, it may be the case that the UK is slightly underpriced right now, that there is an underlying confidence in the UK that has been distorted somewhat in the past few years by the sort of narratives that you're all familiar with. But actually, now that we've got that stability back, and what the Prime Minister, the Chancellor and I have aimed to do in the first year is to make sure that the Britain people know and love around the world, stable, rules-based, a safe place to invest is restored. I think that is being recognised. And if you look at the fundamentals, whether it's inflation turning out lower than expected in the past month, and I'm confident we're on a good downward trajectory on that, or in the sort of investment plans I hear about next year, it gives me confidence that not only are we making sure that we're an attractive place to invest, but those opportunities and that potential for growth, I suspect, will turn out on the upside next year.
We were talking earlier on about one of the things that activities we do during the year is go with some of the investment managers around North America to meet potential institutional investors there. And this year I thought it was very kind of good vibes that we got, and we were delighted to be supported by the Chief Secretary and others as we did that. That is indicative, that effort, of the fact that about somewhere between 85 and 90% of the capital that is managed through our member firms here is raised internationally. This year, one of the most exciting developments for us was the Mansion House speech by the Chancellor and the compact that he agreed with some of the largest financial institutions. For you and your cabinet colleagues, how much of a game changer do you think that can be?
Well, look, I think it's a very significant step forward. When it comes to capital allocation, New York is always going to be there as the global centre of capital allocation. But the United Kingdom historically has been a very, very strong, the second strongest centre for capital allocation. And we continue to have huge strength and depths in the United Kingdom. But I think one of the things that has been lacking recently is that if you have all these big capital allocators based in London, you can't just be drawing in the capital globally. You've got to have your own capital for allocation. And the sort of reforms that the Chancellor has announced are seeking to address some of those perhaps historic failures over the past decade or two when the regulations have not encouraged that kind of freedom to allocate capital from UK funds, particularly pension funds, to opportunities in the UK and elsewhere. So I think it's an important reform. But what I would say to all of you here today, and to you, Michael, is that if you look at the approach that the Prime Minister took at the party conference yesterday, he's shown a willingness to take big decisions. And I want to say to you that we are very much open to taking big and bold decisions to help us along this path to further strengthen the industry, to further free up capital, to further free up growth. That's the approach the Chancellor's taking, I'm taking, the Prime Minister's taking. And so I would like to work with you to understand the next steps that we can take so that the Prime Minister and I can see the next steps along this path. We're determined to use the time between now and the next election, indeed I very much hope and expect after the election, to seize this opportunity, to drive those growth and opportunities, and to work with you. So we're in the market for doing bold things and very much look forward to working with you on that.
We certainly would reciprocate in the sense that it really matters that the bold announcement made in Mansion House is followed through, and we're encouraged by the signals on that as things are developing further, because that source of capital in the UK would be game-changing for the industry, as well as continue to be very effective at raising it internationally. You've mentioned the nations and regions quite a bit there. Just one last little thing. I mean, things like the investment zones that are being rolled out and so on. What other kind of big picture items do you anticipate there will be that can help give the confidence to long-term investors that you see here today that, this is the place to be, and not just here in London, but elsewhere in the country too?
Well, the first thing I think you need from the UK, and one of the challenges we faced towards the end of last year was questions about stability and certainty for the UK market. So the first thing has been to restore that stability and certainty. The second thing is to build the fundamental base of how to enable you to grow the businesses that you invest in. So skills is a huge challenge in the UK. It's probably the number one thing that I hear from businesses when I meet with them. Hence the kind of reforms that were announced by the Prime Minister yesterday in relation to creating parity between technical, vocational education and academic education, and increasing the hours taught and increasing some of the incentives for people on the technical side. Secondly, it's about getting the infrastructure in place. I think one of the things that I was responsible for when I was digital secretary, and is sometimes overlooked the scale of it, how we have managed to roll out a gigabit-enabled broadband across the UK at a very fast pace. I actually think that the reforms yesterday announced by the Prime Minister in terms of not proceeding with the second phase of HS2 and instead focusing on projects in the north of England that can be delivered more rapidly, taking those same resources and using them to deliver local transport projects will get you a more rapid impact. It will help with agglomeration in our major and regional cities, which has been a big problem up until now. The basic problem that to get from the outside to the inside of cities takes a very long time, and to get from east to west gets a very long time. If we want to get really want to drive growth in those regional cities, we need to get those agglomeration effects going through improvements in transport infrastructure. So we're very much focused on that, and indeed that fits in with the wider measures we've taken, whether it's the Towns Fund announcement at the beginning of the week about providing pots of capital for a whole number of towns up and down the country to help with their infrastructure. We're very much focused on this opportunity, but crucially, and this is the thing I keep coming back to, and I know we've discussed before, you need the investment to come in, and we need people to understand that the kind of investment that is provided by private equity is funding those projects, is funding investment and jobs and opportunities outside of London and the South East. You're doing a brilliant job, and we want to work with you to take that up another level.
We're delighted that our messages are landing, but we're particularly delighted that you navigated your way through Manchester and through London to be with us today. Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.